Minister Caroline Dinenage to reply to the debate.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to start by recognising and paying tribute to those who care for us. It's a mark of our society how we care for the most vulnerable, and across the country, whether working in a care home, in a person's own home, or at a day centre or another setting, so many dedicate their lives to caring for others. Mr. Speaker, I also want to thank honourable members from across the House today who have taken the time to debate this really important issue. We've heard a great number of really passionate, measured, detailed speeches where people have spoken about a whole range of issues and show great in-depth knowledge of their own constituencies and a great passion for their own constituencies. My honourable friend, the member for Nuneaton, spoke with enormous knowledge about showing the knowledge you would expect from a former minister in local government. A very wide-reaching speech highlighting actually that most funding baselines do take a number of factors into account, including deprivation, and that is incredibly important. The honourable gentleman for Sheffield South East, the chair of the Select Committee, spoke very passionately about the joint report that him and his committee have produced in partnership with the Health Select Committee. He spoke about how it highlights the importance of better integration at a local level, how it highlights the importance of housing, and how it's really important that the government take it into consideration as we move forward and come back to the House with our Green Paper, and I can pledge to him that we certainly will do that. And his colleague, the honourable member for...
You've mentioned the Green Paper.
OK, go.
Well, the obvious question, when are we going to see it?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we will be bringing the Green Paper forward as soon as possible. His colleague, the member for Exeter, made very similar points about how it's really important that we do take on board the very hard work of the Select Committee, who came up with some really interesting proposals on funding in particular. My honourable...
Very briefly, I thank her for giving way. Would she also ensure that the Green Paper covers the vital work done by unpaid carers who are often ignored in funding policy, particularly when it comes to, for instance, funding breaks for these unpaid carers who find it so difficult to be able to get away?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, he's absolutely right to pay tribute to the incredible work of the army of unpaid carers that are out there and the immeasurable value that they bring to the loved ones that they look after. We not only will, of course, cover those in the Green Paper, but we also have looked at them as part of our actual dedicated action plan for carers, which we released last year and which we continue to work on specifically for carers. I'm going to make a little bit of progress because there have been a number of members who've made a lot of points today, and I do want to try and cover them, but I will come back to those who want to ask questions a bit later on. My honourable friend, the member for Lewis, said in the words of Bananarama, it's not what you do, it's the way that you do it, and highlighted how there have been some really innovative moves by her local council in East Sussex to look at delayed transfers of care and step-down beds. And she's absolutely right to pay tribute to the hard work of NHS and local authority staff who do so much to stop people being trapped into hospital beds, which we know are no good for them in the long term. My honourable friend, the member for South Suffolk, reminded us of the parlous financial situation that we inherited in 2010 and all the difficult decisions that have had to be made across different councils and across central government to do it. But he also highlighted some great examples of local councils finding efficiencies by innovation and technology and really sensible decisions, and spoke about how we do need much more honesty and transparency as we come forward and try and work together to find a solution for adult social care. The honourable lady from St Helens South, I thought, made a really thoughtful, there she is, a very thoughtful and measured speech, and she focused mainly on adult social care, and she spoke a lot about the workforce, and it is something that I'm particularly passionate about myself. We launched a new, in February, we launched a new adult social care recruitment campaign called Every Day is Different, and it aims to raise the image and the profile of the sector and encourage people with the right values to apply to work in this incredibly important role. We also fund Skills for Care. The Department of Health and Social Care funds Skills for Care to support the sector with recruitment and retention and workforce development, and this includes distributing £12 million a year as workforce development fund money that providers can bid into to help their staff gain training and qualification at all levels. My honourable friend from Redditch spoke very passionately about carers. She's over there, she's moved. And as we've already said, the unsung heroes of our health and care system. My neighbour, the member for Fareham, spoke about a number of things and particularly raised some concerns with continuing care. NHS England have launched an improvement programme to help CCGs address variations in assessment and provision of eligibility for continuing care. The honourable gentleman from Hartlepool, I thought, made a really thoughtful and heartfelt contribution. He spoke specifically about the challenges facing coastal communities. I empathise with that myself, representing a coastal community. And he spoke about how Hartlepool is a vibrant and welcoming place. He's a great ambassador for his constituency, as indeed is my honourable friend, the member for Chelmsford, who tells us all that it is the #1 place to live in the UK, including the #1 hotspot for nightlife, which I'm not quite sure how she knows that. She spoke about the lottery of long-term care, and that's something that we do seek to try and address in the Green Paper when it comes forward, about how catastrophic care costs can affect some individuals. I will.
Very grateful. She mentioned the Green Paper, and I appreciate she can't say when it will be published. But is it the government's intention that the Green Paper, when it is published, will lead to reform in this Parliament, or are we likely to have to wait till sometime mid-next decade before any reform actually happens?
I think the honest answer to the honourable gentleman's question is there will be a bit of both. The Green Paper is a big document. It covers a whole range of issues, and some things will be able to be developed straight away, but other things will take longer. I'm going to make a little bit more progress. Go.
I thank the Minister giving well. She's indicated in that reply that the Green Paper already exists. There's a great deal of frustration about the delay. It was supposed to follow hard on the heels of the 10-year plan, because the two are very closely linked. And the Secretary of State gave a pledge from the dispatch box that it would be published before Christmas. Can the Minister at least set out what the reasons for the delay are and give some indication of when we might expect it? It's such a crucial document.
Minister.
Well, the honourable lady will know that there is a version of the Green Paper that does exist, but that doesn't mean that we're resting on our laurels. And while we're waiting for the opportunity to publish it, we are continuing to improve it and evolve it, so that when we do publish it, which will be as soon as possible, it will be in the best possible shape. I was talking about my honourable friend, the member for Chelmsford, who spoke about dementia and the importance of investing in dementia care and research. We lead the world on this, but we know that there's more to do if we want to continue to achieve our aspiration of being the best place in the world to live with dementia by 2020. The honourable lady for North Tyneside spoke about some of the difficulties for local councils that have been addressed by working smarter. She also spoke about how she feels it's very unfortunate that councils have had to raise council tax in order to have the money that they need, but I just would point out gently to her that the average annual increase to council tax bills over the period 97 to 98 to 2010 was 5.8%, and since 2010 it's only been 2.2%, so double under the previous Labour government. The honourable lady for Lewisham and Deptford spoke about youth violence, the importance of working together, schools, social services, voluntary sector, public health, all working together on a real community-led approach to being able to deal with that, and she's absolutely right. My honourable friend, the member for Sleaford and North Highcombe, spoke about the challenges facing rural communities and the higher costs in delivery, particularly of things like domiciliary care, and also about the importance of innovation, quality of care and outcome focus, and the National Centre for Rural Health and Care, which she spoke very glowingly about. The honourable gentleman for North Norfolk, I always listen very carefully to what he has to say because he has done this job previously. He spoke about the importance of investing in prevention and about how social care must help people stay independent for longer. He also admitted that this job isn't quite as easy as it looks, and that when he was fulfilling it, that there were very difficult funding decisions that had to be made, and it's no surprise to him that that continues to be the case, and that nothing has changed since he left the role. And I think it's really important that he recognises that the challenges continue. The Honourable Gentleman for Chesterfield spoke about how there have been some really innovative choices that had to be made, better services that cost less in his constituency, and how they've had to invest in order to save money. He did make a couple of errors, though. Unfortunately, he mentioned that Labour councils were producing lower council tax, but of course everybody knows that actually it's Conservative councils that deliver better value for money, with the combination of great quality services while keeping council tax lower than either Labour or Liberal Democrats. The members for Burnley, Bradford West, Warrington South, York Central and Peterborough all made very passionate speeches, mainly about the impact of austerity on areas of deprivation. The Honourable Lady for Redcar spoke about an innovative employment hub that's grown from the loss of the steelworks in her constituency, and about the Care Academy in Cleveland that is doing great work helping to recruit more people into adult social care. She also mentioned how the challenges of caring for an ageing population is something that is being addressed at a local level, but I would say to her that it is something that we're going to have to address not just at a government level but at a local level, at a voluntary level. We're all going to have to work together to face these challenges which are being faced the world over, quite frankly. The Honourable Lady for Totnes spoke about how important it is to work cross-party and collaboratively on this. We all face difficult choices, and for too long adult social care has been used as a political football. We've heard it even earlier today. The opposition spokeswoman talked about the dementia tax once again. Very unhelpful language that doesn't help us to come to any form of meaningful consensus unless we can work together. The Honourable Lady for, in a moment, the Lady for Crewe and Nantwich asked about sleep-in shifts. This is really important. The Court of Appeal judgment last summer ruled that employers aren't required to pay the national minimum wage, but this has now gone to a Supreme Court, the ruling of which should give clarity to both providers and employees. But the government has taken account of the cost arriving from a national minimum wage and has given an additional £2 billion worth of funding to local authorities in the spring budget 2017. We do encourage employers to pay more than the minimum wage where possible, and I recently wrote to local authorities to state my view that the judgment shouldn't be used as an opportunity to make ad hoc changes. I'm just going to make a bit of progress. The gentleman for Glasgow highlighted how difficult the choices have had to we've had to make, and showed actually by painting an even bleaker picture of how things have panned out north of the border, how difficult these choices indeed have been. And the Honourable Lady from Kingston upon Hull West and Hessel spoke very movingly about her constituents Paul and Lily. She's right to highlight the real personal cases, the individual stories that happen in every single one of our constituency casework files, and if she wants to send me more details, I'm happy to raise the issue with my colleagues at the Department of Work and Pensions. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the population is ageing. Over the next 30 years, the number of people aged 75 and over is set to double, and the number of people with working age care needs is also growing. Some of today's speakers have painted a picture of the social care system that's broken as a result of a lack of funding, but actually the truth is that while money is undoubtedly tight, to face the challenges of an ageing population, we need to do more than just put more money in. We need to large-scale reform of a system if we're going to face the future with confidence that we can care and support for those who most need it. In the short term, we've put in around £10 billion of additional funding, but we will be bringing forward an adult social care green paper, which will look at the long-term funding of adult social care.
The question is, as on the order paper, as many of that opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Point of order, Andrew Gwynne.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I'm really pleased that the practice of having Opposition Day debates has resumed, although it is regrettable that the practice of the government not voting on them seems to have resumed as well. It implies acceptance of the motion by ministers, acknowledging unfair cuts impacting on the most deprived communities, acknowledging the social care crisis. What can be done, Mr Deputy Speaker, to bring ministers to the dispatch box in the terms of the motion put before the House today, before the local elections, so they can set out how they are going to solve the funding crisis?
What I would say is it obviously isn't a point of order, but the point you made is now on the record. Right, let us move on. We now come to motion delegated legislation. Minister to move.
I beg to move.
The question is, as on the order paper, if many of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. We now come to the petition. Patrick Brady.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. The petition to revoke Article 50 on the House of Commons website is by far and away the largest that has ever been signed. Over 6 million people across the United Kingdom have signed it, including 15,112 residents of Glasgow North, nearly 20% of the estimated constituent count. They're fed up with Brexit chaos, they want the process to stop and they want their voices to be heard. But I have one constituent in particular who has never had an email address and found herself therefore unable to sign the petition in the way that so many others had. But she wants to make sure that her voice is also heard loud and clear. So by presenting this petition, as far as I'm concerned, it brings the total for Glasgow North to 15,113. To the House of Commons, the petition of a resident of Glasgow North declares that the government has repeatedly claimed that exiting the EU is the will of the people, but further that this claim is undermined by the 6,079,465 signatures on e-petition 241584 titled Revoke Article 50 and Remain in the EU. The petition therefore requests that the House of Commons urges the government to revoke Article 50 and remain in the EU. And the petitioner remains, etc.
Petition, revoke Article 50 and remain in the EU.
You're right.
I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is, this House do now adjourn. Richard Byrne.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to raise the case of GKN Aerospace Kings Norton. It's a year to the day since the Business Secretary made a statement to the House to tell us that whilst he would not intervene to block Melrose Industries' hostile takeover bid for GKN last year, we could all take comfort